Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the December meeting of the Monroe County Plan Review Committee. Tammy, will you get us started by calling the roll?
All right, okay, call the roll. Jerry Pittsford.
Here.
Beck Morris. Here. Scott Barris.
Yes.
And Bernie Garitas.
Here.
And Julie Thomas is not here yet, but you would show. Okay, that's a quorum,
Maybe. So we have no administrative business tonight and no old business, so we'll jump straight into new business. So first on the agenda is PUO 23-7, the Trails of Robertson Farm PUD outlet. So Daniel, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So the petition site is located at 2691 South Victor Pike in section 20 of the Berry Township. It's a 43.51 acre parcel and currently contains one single family residential structure and multiple accessory structures. The petitioner is requesting a planned unit development to be established at this location in order to develop a large series of residential structures, including one multifamily structure. Should this petition be approved, the petitioner will be creating 145 residential lots containing single family residences, single family paired homes, triplex / townhomes that will each be situated on their own lot with a shared wall, and a multi-family dwelling, and this will all be on that 43.51 acre lot. The development includes ingress and egress points along South Victor Pike, one connection to the Clear Creek Trail, and one connection to the Bloomington Rail Trail. Approval of this outline plan amendment will amend the zoning map and allow for single and multi-family residential development. The area is currently zoned Estate Residential 1, and there were two previous petitions for this property. One was a rezone attempt to planned unit developments, 2012-PUO-6, which was withdrawn, and REZ 21-1, where the petition attempted to have the property rezoned to medium density residential in order to subdivide it into smaller similar layouts to this petition. REZ 21-1 was denied by the county commissioners by a vote of 3-0. And here's just a location map showing property. Here is the Bloomington, I believe that's the rail trail right there. And here's South Victor Pike along here. Here's the current zoning map. It is surrounded by a PUD and estate residential on all other sides. Capacity letters for this petition regarding sewer, gas, electricity, and water have all been obtained. Right-of-way activity permits have been submitted to the highway department for review. A 49-page card survey was submitted with this petition from 2020, and a 7-page water wetlands delineation summary report from 2020 has also been included in this packet. Sidewalks do not run along either side of South Victor Pike, where the proposed site will have access. Should this be approved, the next step will be a major subdivision meeting all the requirements, such as sidewalks and along all road frontage and internal to the street, unless the outline plan specifically states different standards. Multiple cars are present on this property, largely in the northeast area, which is going to be dedicated under this plan to be a common area or green space. Drainage implications of development would be reviewed under the planned unit development plan. Additionally, there is a large transmission line running through the middle of the lot. Here is the site conditions map. Here you can see some of the cars I was mentioning earlier.
Where's 6?
Sorry?
Where's 6? Sinkhole?
The sinkhole?
Sinkhole number 6. And I think it's down on the bottom of the item on the bottom of the diagram there somewhere. Is it marked on there? It must not be marked on this chart here.
Not on this particular map.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Number 6 sinkhole.
I don't believe I do.
It's in the package. I will get to it eventually.
I see.
I just want to see what was on that chart.
And here we just have some site photos of the property as it stands right now. Here's a view from the driveway. You have field from the driveway. Two frankly dilapidated looking accessory structures. A single family residence on the property. And a view of a fence of the field near the two residential accessory structures, and they better look at the field beyond that, which is currently used for hay. And here we have the comprehensive plan discussion. Would the committee like me to run through this?
For me.
I looked through the highlighted parts for this.
Okay. So the petition site is located in the MCUA mixed residential zones on the Monroe County urbanizing area plan portion of the Monroe County comprehensive plan. Points that are aligned with the proposed PUD are highlighted in green, and points that differ from the MCUA districts are highlighted in gray. The first for mixed residential neighborhoods accommodate a wide variety of single family and attached housing integrated into the local neighborhood. They may also. These neighborhoods are intended to serve the growing market demand for new housing choices along the full spectrum of demographic groups. Residential buildings should be compatible in height and overall scale, but with varied architectural character. For streets, the street system should be interconnected to form a block pattern, though it is not necessary, it should be an exact grid. Unlike typical suburban residential subdivisions, mixed residential development is intended to be designed as walkable neighborhoods. For bike, pedestrian, and transit modes, neighborhood streets should be designed in a manner that allows for safe and comfortable bicycle travel without the need for separate on-street bicycle facilities such as bike lanes. For sewer and water, the majority of mixed residential areas designated in the land use plan are located within existing sewer service systems. For open space, pocket parks, greens, squares, commons, and neighborhood parks and greenways are all appropriate for mixed residential neighborhoods. And let's see, should serve as an organizing element around which the neighborhood is designed. For urban agriculture, community gardens should be encouraged. For development guidelines, open space, approximately 200 square feet of publicly accessible open space per dwelling unit. For parking ratios, single family lots will provide 1 to 2 spaces in a garage or driveway. For site design, front setbacks should range from 10 to 20 feet. Private signs. It may be appropriate for neighborhoods to include gateways and signs, but these should be used sparingly and in strategic locations rather than for individual platted sub areas. Now for the gray, which goes against the MCUA. Sorry, it's a little difficult to see with the screen glare from the lights. These neighborhoods are often located adjacent to mixed use districts. And they may also include neighborhood commercial uses as a local amenity. An emphasis on multiple interconnected streets also includes alley access for service and parking. We should have sidewalks on both sides. Power, your utility overhead lines should be buried. Buildings should frame the street with modest side setbacks 5 to 8 feet. Side neighborhoods should feel as though they have evolved organically over time. That's under building form. Private signs, mixed residential neighborhoods should not feel like a typical tract subdivision. And here are the PUD considerations. Would the committee like me to read through these?
Repeat that again, I'm sorry, I was reading.
Here are the PUD review considerations. Would the committee like me to read through these?
Excuse me, I read through them already.
Yeah, no need.
And here's just the PUD outline plan that's included in the packet. 10-page document that outlines the various housing options that went along with some floor plans. It's going to be broken up into 5 different zones based on what kind of residential option is going to be available. And this is going to be completed over 3 phases, is my understanding. Parking details, proposed amenities.
Yeah, go back up to the development zones. That one right there, well, back up. Can you blow that up a little bit? I'm looking for just the bottom. Yeah, you can see the circle. Right here on, up a little bit higher. It's pretty
Yeah,
faint
I'm working on
right there.
This one,
That's sinkhole.
yeah,
That's sinkhole 6. I'm just noting the fact that sinkhole 6, so look where it's located.
right. There have also been some concept pictures included with some of the green space areas.
So making sure it
Right.
Yes.
And here's an overall use table. Or that summarizes each area, each zone. Capacity letter for sewer, capacity letter for electricity. Apologies, this was for water, this is for electricity. And here is a conceptual site plan showing the area.
Yeah, just highlight the 25%. Free space, green space, whatever you call it, common area. It's right down, I think it's right down the middle, right? Is that what that is? Right there,
Yes,
that's what that is.
And then off to the north and the east,
Back up in,
right, but that's all floodplain. That's also open space, right?
that's where the other thing, yes.
Yep. Okay, yeah, a lot of open space is actually space you can build on.
and the delineation report for water, wetlands, and then the CARS report after this, and the very last page of this. Is the project that shows is the map that shows the 3 phases. Also included, and I believe I passed this out to everyone except for Commissioner Thomas. You do have 2 packets.
Oh.
One of them is a presentation that the petitioner has put together. The other is a list of is a collection of remonstrance that we have received regarding this petition. And so our recommendation to the plan review committee is that this proposal does appear to meet the comprehensive plan of the MCUA mixed residential. However, the MCUA phase 2 document specifically states, quote, "It is the intent of this zoning framework to eliminate the need to establish new planned unit developments by creating an expedited, consistent, and predictable set of zoning requirements and approval procedures. Opportunities to eliminate the planned unit development overlay will also be accommodated and should be encouraged," unquote. Therefore, staff is recommending a negative recommendation to the Plan Commission for this PUO request. And there are other by right zones that could accommodate a mix of housing types. And I will open the floor to the committee. Do you have any questions?
To start with, I have a question, and it's really what I'd like to see in the next version of this packet when we go to admin meeting. So we've heard this before, right?
Right.
So is this considered a new petition? Or is this the same petition?
I believe it's considered a relatively new petition.
Okay,
The last one was a rezone. There was an attempted PUO before this back in 2020.
Right.
However, that one was withdrawn before it could be heard by the
Okay.
commissioners.
okay, so. It may be useful, and I wouldn't actually put it in the packet, but links. Make sure the links work to those 2 previous petitions. I saw one link and I don't think it worked, but it may have been my computer system, but anyway, if you could put in links to those previous packets. it may be useful for the public to see what's changed as well, and if that could be summarized succinctly, you know, this petition for X number of units in 2020, this is a petition for X number of units in blah, blah, blah. One was a PUO request, one was a rezone request. I think that would be helpful. And again, you don't have to put the whole packets in, right? But at least if we can go to those other sites, it might be.
Julie, I spent a few minutes looking at the previous packets.
Yeah.
This one is very similar to the PUO
Oh.
or PUD that was withdrawn
2020,
initially,
the 2020.
2020 or what,
Okay.
September.
So if
I
that's.
feel
the
like this is really familiar. Thank you for doing that research.
And so if that's the case, if this is just, well, it's been a few years now, let's go ahead and try it again.
Yeah,
Isn't that wasting everybody's time?
well, they have a legal right to do it, right? I mean, they have a legal right to bring back.
And so when you sat down with them and, or I assume somebody sat down and talked to them, this discussion, what this was then, this is now. And maybe this is a better course of action versus what they're proposing, what did they say?
As Director Jolin had most of those conversations, and I think after chatting with her, there was, like, some points were brought up that I mean, it was gonna be hard for staff to support from comp plan standpoint, some of the additional. They were able to get a will serve letter for sewer. They were in that capacity letter, which has been a hang up for some of the other developments, so. They have a legal right, yeah.
To continue down that path, so the PUO or PUD that was initially heard a couple years ago was withdrawn. And then I think medium density residential was proposed and denied. So I'm curious how medium density residential compares to the PUD that's being proposed now from a density perspective. It feels like to me that this PUD is more dense than medium density residential.
It is in a way, because my understanding is that medium density residential does not allow for multifamily use. And this petition does include a lot where it is intended for multifamily use, so multifamily dwelling.
It looks to me like there's almost an apartment complex or something in
Yeah.
one parcel of this.
It says 1 to 2 floors, but then it's 3 floors in the picture. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great question. And the other thing I would say is I would like to see the maybe even on a separate copy of the map, but their development map, I'd like to see that high that power line, the high intense use power line. I'd like to see that. I believe I know where it runs. It's based on my memory. And I think there's dotted lines or dots or dashes on the map, but if you could make a map with a yellow over it, that would be helpful. Because I'm not sure people really want. Yeah, I believe it's in the backyards down the middle, if I remember correctly. It runs down the middle and then those backyards are a little longer. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it, but I wasn't sure. And I didn't have time to go back again to look at this property, but that's what I remember because it ran right down the middle. Just horrible.
Well, the other thing is, it doesn't do any good to bury power lines when you have a high tension line running
You
through the
can't.
property.
Yeah, you can't.
Because that's not gonna get buried. I have a question too, when you get a chance.
There it is. Okay, so that's it there, right? In the gray?
Yes.
That's what, okay, then we're good. Thank you. Sorry, mine is.
So the
mine is-
the green space is overspanned by high tension power.
I don't
As someone
know,
who goes running on that trail can attest that they're there.
Faster under them or?
Maybe.
I don't know if that's a separate common area. It might be.
That's what I'm-
incorporated into the
Right, that's all I'm trying to figure out is if that gray area with the hash marks is the high tension line and that's considered to be part of the open space, then yes, the open space is overspanned by high tension power lines.
An open space doesn't have to be common area either. Open space, for example, if you look up in the north.
Right,
That's not common, like
Right.
you would send your kids to
right.
go play.
Well, that's why I didn't refer to it as common area, but you know, as far as open space goes, it's very limiting. My underlying concern about the amount of time we put into this and things in that area is how close to city annexation is this both geographically and chronologically?
That is not currently known to me.
It's,
Well, I think it's a significant issue because I believe this is, obviously it's covered by the McCoo, which is areas that are intended for annexation, and we know that there is a desire for annexation, so.
I would not make either assumption on those last 2.2.
Okay, well, they were
I
not,
would not,
they,
because, and
well,
right
they
now,
really were not assumptions, but it is definitely part of the McCoo.
right, but McCoy doesn't mean we intend annexation. Annexation is something that the residents should have a say in, and that's what we're trying to work on, but,
Do you see what my point is? I'm not arguing the
You're just wondering.
good or bad. My question is, are we spending a lot of time and effort looking at this without giving any consideration to the fact that it may be annexed within the
Guys,
next 5
remember
years?
what area number this is? This is 2B, isn't it?
I cannot say definitively.
Or 2, I'm sorry, this is
Well, it's either to be or not to be.
I haven't seen.
either area 2 or it is, I think it is area 2.
I believe it is area two, but I can't say that without looking up.
And area 2 was lost. The annexation effort was lost because the residents returned more than 65% of the
Okay.
residents.
But it
returned.
is
So it's
one-
already done. It's
but it
done.
is
Now,
one-
I know the
10
first.
years, they can come back.
The first time we saw this, it was still overshadowed by the prospect of annexation, and that was the origin of my
This
question.
this is one of the areas that the city of Bloomington is challenging the state of Indiana on constitutionality. Now, this hasn't been heard yet, and we don't even know where it's gonna be litigated.
Well, that part was dropped by the city because they still want to fight 1A and 1B. So 1A and 1B are the ones that are
Well, I
still
know
on the
that,
table.
but the city
Yeah,
was doing the lawsuit to
Right.
argue with the state of Indiana that,
and they agreed to drop that part. Yes, yeah, so that's reason, so.
And then in my mind, the next following question is, if it is likely to be annexed, what would it look like under the city of Bloomington zoning if it was brought in?
If that's the case, then they might as well not annex except to get the tax money, because otherwise we can make the county look like the city. So is that, I mean, either way, I get what you're asking philosophically. But either way, either we don't do anything in this area because the city may at some point do something and they may want it, and what will it look like? Or we make it look like the city now and just get it over with.
Right.
And I'm not sure I'm okay with either philosophy. I think we should zone it and utilize this space like any other space that's outside the city of Bloomington, outside the town of Altsville, and outside the town of Sykesville. It should be based on our comp plan and I don't think we should anticipate 25 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 2 weeks from now. I think we need to, but I understand your question. I just think it could be applied either way to say, oh, make it look like the city now and get it over with, or it could be used to say, we shouldn't do anything on any of this property because the city may take it and they may want to do something different. I don't think either is accurate. I think we should continue to address this as a part of the county zoning and land use. But that's me, that's my take on it.
Right, well, and I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. But I also think pragmatically speaking, is that there has to be some consideration to services that are going that direction. There's water there, there's sewer there. Are they looking at, expanding bus routes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, So, I mean, we lived under a 2 mile fringe deal for a number of years, and I felt like that there was a reason for that. I don't think it was always a good reason, but I think there was a reason for that, which is that, I don't know. I agree with you, in essence, we don't have an obligation to do urban format zoning based on the speculation that the city might end up with zoning jurisdiction over that. But by the same token, spending a lot of time on these projects with extremely high dense use, if we're going to signal high density use is not appropriate in the county ever, then, the comp plan and our zoning ordinance should codify that, and then we won't have these to deal with.
Okay. It is
But right now it doesn't.
1B. Oh, it's 1B, so it's still up for grabs. Still up in the courts. This is 1B. I thought this was 2, it's 1B. Thank you.
Do you see what I'm saying? I feel like when we allocate a lot of our resources to these and totally ignore the fact that it is an urbanizing zone, and our comp plan and our zoning ordinance takes into consideration that high density can be an appropriate use and adjacent to urbanizing areas, we either live with that and work accordingly, or we change the comp plan and zoning ordinance and say we're not interested in high density residential anywhere in the county, even if it is right up against the city limits. We're not interested in that.
Okay. Well, for this particular piece of property, I hear what you're saying. I agree with some of it. But this is not up against the city, but it is in Clear Creek. So that's the middle ground for me personally, but, I mean, I don't want to be so defeatist as to say, let's just go ahead and make the student apartments, because eventually the city is going to take it over and that's what it'll be.
Well, and
I'm just not going to go there.
I also.
I'm not willing to.
Right, I also been around long enough to know that at one point, and I don't know if planning has changed this or not, but at one point, one of the ways to slow the concern of urban sprawl, which is what it was called, and I don't even know if that's the term anymore or not, if even some people talk about it anymore, but was that you had transition neighborhoods, and transition neighborhoods look like this. They really did, because they have green space dedications and stuff like that, whereas in an urban format, there is no green space. It's all asphalt and buildings, but this has green space. That was the concept, and I'm willing to be corrected if I'm wrong, but I believe that was the concept that was pitched 20 years ago.
I don't think the densities were that high.
I think one thing that we lost is the fact that you bring up urban sprawl, and nobody ever really accurately defined urban sprawl, because it was an argument upon itself that never made any sense.
True.
It really was. I mean,
But it did yield planning concepts that influenced our design decisions.
but I think it yielded planning concepts that were looking for, that used it as a tool to get a tool for the goal versus something that made.
And that's what I'm saying.
Communicate. So when I
Are there transition neighborhoods anymore or not in planning concepts? I don't know. That's the question.
Yeah, there should be transition neighborhoods, absolutely.
Right. And what does a transition neighborhood look like?
If you go through and if you look at staff's report on this one, and I can't remember what the planning commission voted on the first one we looked through, the second one was withdrawn, I remember that. When you look at the green and the gray, which is a great tool, and you make that comparison, really, and not just in number, but in objective review, the green outweigh the gray to me substantially. I mean, you know, utilities vary, where you're not gonna vary, just like you said, the heavy transmission, right? That goes all the way through the counties. There are houses and there are neighborhoods underneath it, and they live their life every day and they're probably pretty content. So I don't know that that's a necessarily a bad mark on a petition like this. The comprehensive or the CDO, I think, recommends this as MD, which is, I think, 2100.21 acres per unit. I think is what it's proposed at. Of course, that's not set up now, but I think from what we talked about the ORC, that's at 0.21. I just did some quick math, and this is at 0.29 acres per unit. So, and I guess the other thing I looked at was if you go through, if you look at how this whole part of town, it's got the public infrastructure. We've talked about this at the ORC as well. The infrastructure, the transportation, including transportation, I-69, the schools, the dense neighborhoods to the north, all look at this as being somewhat of a transition neighborhood. It's 145 lots, the right number. I don't know, but I think it's falling in line with what the consultants and what staff have been looking at for being agreeable to the CDO. I don't know. I think that something like this is probably in line for this area. So that's just my gut.
So the basic question I have, it's about density.
Mhm.
But I look at this chart up here. This is really a lot of stuff on a pretty compact area. And does it, if I ask you a blanket statement, does this meet the requirements of all of our planning documents? The size of the lots as they're broken down per the each, does it meet all the requirements?
Well, part of a planned unit development is that it's able to establish kind of its own acreages for its lots. However, I do understand that I believe that this is only undergone some slight changes in terms of acreage, minimum lot sizes from the proposed rezone to MR, which I believe has a minimum lot size of 0.21 acres.
So
Right.
yes or no?
Well, I did quick math. These are 0.29 acres per unit. MD is 0.21 acres per unit. So this would just quickly,
You're including the open space, so.
I'm including the open space, but the PUD component is a percentage that would, that's required by the ordinance, which goes into my next, which was the last point I was gonna make. If you read through what the comprehensive plan says, the thing that staff is saying that they don't like about the petition or is leaning in towards a negative recommendation is the fact that it is a planned unit development or PUO, because we want to theoretically get rid of those. I mean, I see that as the underlying issue that staff has. So I'm not asking this question, I'm asking it to myself because I don't want to put staff on the spot. But what straight zone would be favorable here? And I think that's maybe the question, instead of going through the PUD plan, what straight zone would be?
Well, that's where I
And
started.
where would it
Yeah,
be
I
on
was trying to keep
the
back to where. you were.
proposed zoning map?
So what's the preferred course of action if there is one,
So
to allow them to do this?
the MR petition, I can't remember if staff supported that or not. But the MR zone at the time was something that the comp plan, I think, was in favor of, and I think the draft zoning map had been kind of draft zoning map under staff's using the comp plan, those kind of matched. There have been discussions in ordinance review committee that the draft zoning map might be different.
What would this be under the draft zoning map?
The ORC meeting,
No, I think
we're gonna probably talk about that in January, because there was a recommendation made recently at ORC as to what it should be.
So would this be agro reserve under that?
No.
I think it was,
Residential one, and the underlying.
1 acre lots.
yeah, 1 acre was what, which is what it is now. I think it was just gonna stay.
Yeah,
down.
you have to read through it.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
So I guess where I'm going with this, and I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, so just bear with me. If we were to take and support this, how would it have to be presented to this body and to the plan commission and to the commissioners in order for them to support? Is there any way to make that work?
Well, they could currently do 1 acre lots here by right, under the current zoning. The next step down in our ordinance allows for, is it the medium residential density, which is 0.21. You don't, or.
So they'd have to ask for a rezone to MR, but then they'd have to ditch the 3-story apartment.
Can you show the zoning map on this? I wanna see what adjacent zoning is.
I believe it's just PUD to the east and RE1 everywhere else.
So while
Except
you're,
the school to the north.
yeah, while you're looking
And
at
that's zoned RE1 as well.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Okay, so all of the light green is RE1
Yes.
and the brown is PUD. And agro reserve.
one thing that stands out to me is you've got Eagle View to the north. So if you're going north, you're moving closer to the city limits, and Eagle View is much less dense than what is being proposed on this property. So most of the lots in Eagle View are between 1/3 and 3/4 of an acre in some cases, and most of the lots in this proposal are between 5 acres. So you're,
That's significant.
as you're leaving the city, your lot sizes are increasing, and all of a sudden you come to this is more comparable to the highlands north of Eagle View.
My point is, this is really a dense neighborhood that they're proposing. And if it's allowed, then we should take and work out some sort of solution to help them to make it allowed. Okay. If the opposite is true, we should be looking at rejecting what they're proposing and have them come back with a different plan. That's all I'm suggesting. This is the sort of attempt. And so how many more times we're gonna go through this?
Many times does it ask us to?
Well, we have a legal right to.
Well,
And,
that-
Scott, it's interesting because that was kind of where I was heading too. Where's the disconnect in our language? Because, is our language really in the comp plan
Or they just.
really
trying to wear it
discouraging
down.
this?
Well, they just.
And it's being ignored? Yeah, and I'm okay with that, if somebody wants to ignore it, that's fine, but I wanna be sure that the way we receive these is consistent with what the message is of our comp plan and our zoning ordinance. It's pretty simple.
The PUD aspect of it is what complicates it. And to speak to Scott's question earlier, what parts of it match the zoning ordinance? In its nature, it doesn't, and that's where the PUD process comes in. It doesn't match it, so they are going for the PUD. So technically, the PUD is within the ordinance, so technically they're following along with the ordinance. But in general, staff discourages planned unit developments because it makes things complicated and it allows for, things that an ordinance wouldn't normally permit.
Right, and I think when you have overlying zoning on something, a PUD is appropriate when you have compelling reason. North Park is PUD because it was too comprehensive to be done with straight zoning. So it does make sense to do that. That was like a whole zoning process. It wasn't just, flippantly done. You also have unusual, sometimes geographic constraints that make a PUD necessary. And ultimately, though, a PUD, there should be some advantage to the county in that process and some advantage to the petitioner that they can't get in straight zoning. So are we seeing any of that here? And it sounds like we're saying, no, we don't see any advantage for the county in this, unless this is what we must have in order to reach that best and highest use standard that we're striving for when we do zoning.
I agree. I think what complicates it more is in a lot of situations with PUDs, when we first see them come to this body at least, it's no secret that the developers are trying to maximize their use of the land. And that can come off as hyperdense development styles.
This is hyperdense.
Yeah, so that kind of, makes it the discussion of, well, what's the best use, highest and best use of the land? Is it maximizing it up to what the PUD would allow for, which, is limited by that 20% required open space? So that a lot of that discussion is.
And if we had an employer within 2 to 5 miles of this, who is bringing in 5,000 employees within the next 24 months, this kind of density, we may say, heck yeah, we have to have that because we have to have affordable housing. We have to have housing opportunity, whether it's affordable or not, but we have to have housing opportunity for 5,000 new residents who are coming because this business is coming here. That doesn't exist. So there are scenarios, and with that, I'm gonna stop. I'm done. Okay, about this.
I'm gonna chime in real quick. I noticed we've got a hand raised, and I just wanted to mention that I'm sorry, but we don't take public comment at the Plan Review Committee. So public comment will be accepted at the Plan Commission hearing on January 16th.
So just 2 points for me. One, density remains an issue. And the other thing is that I keep bringing up this sinkhole thing. Which if I take and look at the diameter, I don't know if this is technically correct on the chart here, but it certainly is out in its, and several lots in the area here are captured by that circle. And so that is a problem. Now, maybe there's an answer to that problem. And maybe it's buried in this package somewhere, but I don't think when I read it, I could find that where that was mentioned. They talk about what they do to remediate a sinkhole, but in this particular case, 6 has some extenuating circumstances. You can see up there how it captures of the other lots.
How much what's the area, do we know what the acreage of the floodplain is?
That's not known to me at this time off the top of my head.
Okay.
And I have a couple of questions kind of going in a different direction. I'm curious to know if Highway has weighed in on this, and I ask that for 2 reasons. One, the 2 entrances seem very close together, and I worry that an incident on Victor Pike could essentially make this neighborhood inaccessible for a period of time. And 2, there's been a lot of activity in this area. Southern Meadows is in the process of being developed. Rumpke is located on the other side of the highway, so there's more trash truck traffic. Clear Creek Christian School is in the process of adding on. I was curious if Highway has analyzed this area recently.
For traffic,
Traffic.
okay.
I don't.
I think it's a good question to ask them for the admin meeting.
Yeah, you don't have to answer now, but I think it's.
I want to make 2 corrections. One is that in January, we will not be having a PC admin meeting or
Oh, that's
type
right,
of
we're
things.
doing,
We're doing the CDO work session. And 2, I made an error in my comment earlier. Our in-between zone that we have is actually LR, low density residential, which is 0.37 acres. So that's the next step down from 1 acre zoning would be the LR zoning. I didn't calculate out how many lot actually.
And it just feels strange to be having this discussion in the middle of the discussion we're having in Orange Review Committee, the discussion we're having with the Plan Commission and the CDO about different zones and different densities, and it's just, this seems part and course.
My other question is around water service. Is Southern Monroe the water provider, or is it City of Bloomington? Because the letter, it looked like City of Bloomington was only providing sewer. I know when this came up before, the issue of fire hydrants came up because the water provider is not going to take responsibility for fire hydrants.
I don't believe we have a capacity letter in the packet for water. I know that, let's see. CenterPoint Energy's gas.
City of Bloomington Utilities got a letter in that. Is that only?
It's central sewer.
The city
I didn't
is not
read it,
providing
but it-
water, I'll tell you that right now, there's gonna have to be a corporation outside, yeah, the fine from the state.
There was concern last time about the homeowners association being responsible for the fire hydrants.
Right, thank you for reminding me about that.
The last point, Jeffrey. The last data point, of course, was those folks who say they don't want it at all.
Yep.
And they got a whole package here, and if you leaf through it, you'll see there's an awful lot of people who don't want this.
Further comments or questions, or is anybody willing to make a motion?
I would prefer just to let our question stand. If everyone's okay with that, rather
I
than.
agree with that.
I think legitimately argue the point that we don't have enough information to make informed.
Okay, thank you all for the conversation on that. Moving on to item number 2, PUO -23-8, the Middleton Technology Park Community Operating Plan.
Start with 75.
Something like that, maybe 79.
Good job, Daniel.
It's page 98, I believe.
But take the rest of the evening off, so.
Okay,
No, don't give him the pen, thank you. Yeah.
There, time's that tight in the office, you guys have share pins.
my special pins. All right, so this is PUO 23-8. It's the Bloomington Technology Park PUD Outline Plan Amendment 7. So this is located at 1444 South Liberty Drive. The petition site is located in Van Buren Township. It is 3.8 acres and it's currently zoned PUD Bloomington Tech Park. Our Liberty Drive Medical Office Facility LLC is requesting to amend the PUD ordinance. And they are represented by Smith Design Group as well as a law firm for Clending, Johnson and Boer. Petition site is currently permitted under the PUD to have light industrial uses. And the petitioner is now requesting a PUD outline plan amendment to permit the same list of limited commercial uses that are available for other lots within the same PUD. The reason behind this is that the rezone is due to a request to utilize the property as a hotel, which was determined to not be permitted use under the current PUD ordinance. Use of hotel is permitted on the adjacent lots, however. Petitioner has been made aware of this fact and proceeded with this filing to allow for commercial uses, including a hotel, to be permitted on this lot. This property is pretty storied. There's been a lot of amendments with respect to subdivisions as well as planned unit developments. On page 99, I summarize all of these and highlight the ones that are specifically related to the property in question. And to basically, if I can get to some maps here. Well, I'll get some maps here in a second, actually, on the next page over. So this lot here is lot 14A, which is the property in question. All the PUD that you see is Bloomington Tech Park, this darker red color. And everything on the east side of South Liberty Drive originally was permitted with limited commercial uses, whereas everything on the west side was originally permitted with light industrial uses. But now they are requesting that this lot in particular receive the same permitted uses that are on the east side of South Liberty Drive. So on page 100, I give you a breakdown of what those lots and their permitted uses are. So lots 3, 4, 5, 7, 15, 16, 17, and 18 all have those limited commercial uses. And those are all the uses that the petitioner is seeking to establish on lot 14. as well, which is just currently light industrial uses. The highway department has provided some comments at these early stages, stating that a traffic study would likely not be needed.
Yeah, because we all have driven out there. That's all you need.
Very slowly.
Traffic studies on that road that we could probably pull about 100 out of luck.
Well, I think we could just go from our subjective experience to.
Yeah.
And
It
recognize
is-
how poorly that place.
The property is designated in two separate critical drainage areas. So that aspect of the site would be evaluated at the PUD development plan stage by the county MS4. There would be special requirements to be met with respect to the critical drainage areas. Comprehensive plan has it designated as employment under the MCUA designation. The rest of the report here is essentially exhibits for your review. Scroll through the findings here. We have the petitioner's letter stating their request. The only changes that are going to be enacted under this PUD outline plan amendment would be the fact that they are adding all the permitted uses of those other lots to lot 14A specifically. Here I have a draft site plan. I'm just, I believe it's just the current conditions of the site. And I also included some exhibits about the original ordinance and the original staff report that established this as a PUD back in 2001. That'll take me to our recommendation. So overall, staff recommends forwarding a positive recommendation for this outline plan amendment request based on the findings of fact and the proposal's appropriateness with the Monroe County urbanizing area plan. I'll have any questions.
Was this tech park developed under City of Wilmington County,
Yeah.
or was it actually done in the county?
City.
I was pretty sure this was done as a city.
There's a first.
And we can all, take a quick trip out there and see how much of a tech park actually emerged from that planning effort, so.
Industrial came first.
I think this was the
I'll
first.
be honest.
I think this was the first one in the city.
This is more of a comment rather than a question, but my only thought on this, it seems like a fine spot for others, so I'm not really worried about that, but given that this is already zoned light industrial, it seems like there's less light industrial available in the county. Are we taking away a potential future industrial site in an area that really is suited for that? Oh, can I answer?
UPS is ticked off that everything that's happened out there doesn't fit light industrial. The traffic patterns are not light industrial. Coca-Cola left. No industrial opportunity wants to be there. It is no longer a tech industrial.
Well,
That ship has sailed.
the part of it that is the part off of Curry, like where you accessed it off of Curry.
Right.
What is it called?
Yost
Constitutional-
Avenue.
Yeah, that's like the LI part of it for me, and then the whole edge is the retail and small office
Right. So
side, so it's like the
Right.
light industrial is kind of sequestered in that section to me.
Tech industrial has been lost here. The horse is out of the barn. Which,
Well, if, you get to that point where what's the demand,
no, I'm just saying that that's,
but
so in answer to your question, no, it's not appropriate for light industrial now
Yeah.
anyway.
Right, which would explain why traffic on.
Liberty is
way it
the worst, yeah.
It's because it's
It's
a
not.
technology
But-
park and not a retail park.
Right, and it's really not even, that roadway is not even ideal for light industrial because it's really not ideal for trucks. So it really is more tech
Right.
park built, but yeah.
And I know there are other forces at work that cause Coke to leave, you
Oh,
know, but you can, if you talk to people at UPS, they'll tell you that
yeah,
this is total betrayal of what they were buying.
There questions or comments?
I'm,
In case Jerry asked the question, it's in A1 or 1A of the annexation.
You see, it's already designed according to city standards, so. You know what I'm saying?
not even.
Well, not according, well, let me rephrase, it was designed,
Develop this.
it was
today.
designed under the city's preferences at the time it was. So they're getting what they paid for.
Okay, anything else for Drew?
One thing I would note is that on the east side of this parcel is the IU Health Center. So there is some common.
I don't. The east side of this.
It was a
parcel.
church.
Oh, I see what
It
you're
was,
saying.
it wasn't church, it was Methodist conference.
Yeah,
Okay,
Administration.
yeah.
it's not the same parcel.
No, it's not the same parcel, but there is a common use, you know, for medical areas.
Yeah,
It is a highly trafficked area, people
Yep.
go.
Yep.
And this can be seen as a byproduct of a trip. So it may not necessarily be a trip generator, although it could be. I mean, you know, it's the same thing that you go through and you look at banks and different
Yeah.
things. People tend to work those services around being in an area of town, so it may or may not necessarily generate traffic. And there is a common use right next to it that could be considered a sister use or a kind of a. It's not a new concept.
yeah. But they're not tied to only putting medical in here,
With the,
right? This could be anything.
Anything on that list?
GB is huge, right?
Yes.
So, but I will say that I do know that one of the things that IU Health is trying to do is trying to ensure that they have facilities in all the quadrants of the county. And this part of town, it is very difficult to find appropriate size lots for a medical office that's substantial. But I don't, to me, this is may not never be medical because this could be so many other things.
well, aren't they proposing a hotel for this lot?
Yeah.
Okay. But you know, what happens is on off 69, there are food opportunities, shopping opportunities. You know, that make it. You know, I wouldn't say it's easy on and off, but it's as easy as anywhere else along the 69 corridor in Monroe County to get on and off for accommodations. There's no easy place to get a hotel room. Monroe County off of 69. You have to go. to
Third
the place.
Street. There's another one here already in the park.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, this is,
Yeah, but there's also one on the other side of 69 on Third.
right. Yeah, are you
Where
talking
those
about
restaurants are?
on the bypass? No, on Third. Oh, by Texas Road, and again, you're still going a fair distance off. You know, you're going back to things that are appropriate to that.
Is there anything on this list that people don't think is appropriate?
Maybe that's a better question.
Well, that's what I was just like.
I mean, that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at this, we've done that in the past, you know, where you restrict.
Yeah. Yeah, and we could do that.
Well, I was gonna ask the question. So this says Bloomington Technology Park PUD permitted use. But this, do we list what?
I think that's something to consider before the,
This is the list they're considering for uses. That's what I want to clarify.
The uses that they're seeking to establish for lot 14 are the same uses that you see that are on those two columns that are
Right.
existing for lot 3,
Right.
4, 5, 7.
Thank you.
So the recommendation would be to limit it to what they ask.
If you want to.
Which is-
if you
That's
want to
not,
further limit it.
that's not in their recommendation.
Okay, but what I'm saying is our recommendation would be
Could be.
our recommendation could be to give parity equal to what they're requesting.
I have I just need a little bit of a reminder, when there is a PUD like this and properties are owned by different people, this isn't the nascent stage of a PUD, this is an elderly PUD. Land use standard. Are adjacent property owners notified? Is every property owner in the PUD notified? Is every property, so for example, we could see this property on this map, who's going to be notified about this request?
Sure, so in the PUD process, there is that requirement for a neighborhood meeting that does require noticing. I would have to look further into the ordinance to see what that is defined as neighborhood, and it's something like this.
Oh, that's, I guess,
It could be technically, it could be its subdivision. That is its
Okay.
neighborhood for its neighborhood meeting.
so it'll be everything in the, well, but see, the PUD butts up against another property that,
Yeah,
so.
but in general, through any sort of planning process that goes to the planning commission, neighbor notice letters are also issued.
Mhm.
And there's some guidelines from state statute that
Mhm.
dictate that.
Okay. Because if hotels are really strange entities, like I would not want to live near a hotel. Because I know what can happen when a hotel declines
Mhm.
and how it changes the feel of a neighborhood. This is in a PUD. There's no, the nearest residents are on the other side of the industrial site, which is Baxter. So, you know, does that matter? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. So I just want to make sure that people are notified so that if they do have those concerns, that they voice them. And I don't think there's anything that would require that neighborhood to be notified. I just,
The
they're so
neighborhood.
far away.
The neighborhood.
Across
by
Curry.
Doyle Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they're too far away.
They're too far away, but to me, they're really not, because it really can impact a neighborhood. Yeah, so anyway, just thinking out loud.
I mean, we're limited by like 600
Yeah,
feet,
right.
600 feet,
Right.
and yeah, it's two properties out, so it just depends on
Yeah,
how.
so Baxter might be like, okay, fine, have a hotel there, great, but, and then you've only got the two LI lots, but not the IL lot. In that 600 feet.
Where does it say it's
I would just like a bigger.
hotel? Is it buried in here somewhere that said that their uses to put a hotel in? Did I missed that? Is that buried somewhere?
On page, let's see, 100. In the first column of uses under retail and wholesale.
Yeah.
Their first one right there is hotel.
Yeah, I know, but is this what they said they're planning to use to put on that spot? Or just?
Yes, so that was part of their initial conversation with planning staff.
Okay, so it's not,
That's what's created this.
but it's not buried, it's not up there in the first paragraph buried, there's the, it introduced the motel, right? Did I miss that?
It's somewhere because I remember
I
reading.
just can't,
Yeah.
I think it's in the
letter.
summary section.
Oh, somewhere,
all right,
somewhere I saw it.
Impetus for this reason is due to a request to utilize the property as a hotel.
all right, so that to me, that I go back to that, the request is to take and use that piece of land and they're gonna put a hotel. Do we have a problem with that? Went back to what you were talking, Julie. Is there a problem with them putting a hotel there?
I think the other question is, are there any, I think your first question was better, which is, are there any uses
And
that
I
are
agree
on
with
this
that. I
list
agree.
that we don't want?
But
Yeah, I
there's
mean, your
limitations.
question was a good.
But if there's a limitation on
Yeah.
whether you want it or not, then we
Yeah.
should just stop right now.
So in a
I
depleted
agree.
situation. Where else?
Yeah.
Where else would you want a rundown hotel.
Yeah, no.
I'm not picking on them. Yeah, I mean,
That's when that.
I mean,
was-
we're in an area that's,
No, I mean, I get what you're saying. I wouldn't want it any closer to a neighborhood, but. Certainly, this is certainly they're not gonna build a dilapidated structure, but they do decline and that's what happened.
But for maybe the 30 years that it's in use, you might see a population dynamic change in there.
Yeah,
We'll also say like, county's doing that trail system.
Right.
It's gonna come up Liberty across Constitution. And make it all the way over to the Cars Farm Park, and that could be a draw for some people who wanna bike
Yeah.
that area.
yeah, I think that's a great
point.
point. I think that's a great point, yeah.
it just doesn't seem they're stretching it too far away from what's going on in this area now.
No,
I mean, that's,
I,
so, that's my only point. And
but then do we, if we limit their use to hotel, is that fair to them? Because others have a list. Other property owners in this PUD have a list of potential uses. Is it fair to tell them you can only use this for a hotel?
no, I think that they're asking for the uses that are consistent with lots 2 through 18,
Right.
and that's consistent with the neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
So if they probably would have had those, well, I don't want to say that because I don't know that's correct. It's not a stretch of uses that this area doesn't already recognize.
There's legitimacy in just adding 14 to that other list.
Just adding 14 to that other list. Yes. Yeah.
Lot
Lot 14A, yeah,
Just-
14A. Okay, I get what
Let
you
me
mean.
say that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
There's legitimacy based on what we.
yeah, I get it.
It's
I get
not a
it.
shock. to
No.
everybody. So anyway.
No, I hear you.
Okay,
I'm fine with not even voting on it, but we've asked good questions, I think.
thank you, Drew. So up next is REZ 23 5, the U-Haul rezone from IG to GB.
Okay, so this is the rezone request, the U-Haul rezone request from general industrial to general business. This is located at 3274 and 3300 West Profile Parkway, also known as lots 6 and 7 of the Pinnacle Business Park Major Subdivision Amendment 1.
It's a, sorry, you're.
I was gonna say, do you want me to continue?
Snap. All right.
So it's located in the Pinnacle Business Park Major Subdivision Amendment 1. So I think I would like to mostly focus on the background here, which is the reasoning for the rezone request. So in September 2023, staff received a use determination, use 2351. For U-Haul, so U-Haul is essentially shopping around for properties to determine what would fit their use for their U-Haul facility. And staff determined that U-Haul doesn't fit a use in our ordinance. It's actually fits more of a combination of uses. So in particular, in this case, it would be automotive rentals and convenience storage. So this can fall under the multi-use category, business or industrial center located in chapter 802 of our ordinance. So that would serve as the umbrella term. So otherwise, in the IG or the general industrial zone, automotive rentals and convenience storage would otherwise not be allowed. So automotive rentals is not a permitted use, and convenience storage is not a permitted use at all. So their next attempt would be to rezone to a zone that would allow for that, which would be the GB, the general business zone.
And looked at Liberty Park to see
I will say that they have been shopping around for sure. So in the staff packet, I have the use tables for the general industrial district. Significantly smaller than the general business use, which goes on for a while. And then probably a very stark difference between the two zones are the design standards. So there's definitely no correlation between the two. They're very different. I would say that general business in general has lower standards than the IG district. So that is something that would have to be considered before any decision was made. This is just a location map. The current zoning of the area is almost entirely IG. There's some PUD development around, excuse me. And then I believe there's a pre-existing mobile home park to the north. So looking at the site, looking at the site conditions maps, I've been out there, so it's almost entirely flat, it's open, vacant. There is an existing EPA easement on the southwestern portion here. Nothing too much in regards to the environment. There is a proposed extension. Sorry, keep getting tickle in my throat. There is an extension proposed by the highway department for the Sunrise Greetings, which will extend over this railroad here.
And it'll extend through that lot.
Potentially, if it's not acquired by the highway department.
Right,
I'm not sure what the future plans are in regards to that.
can't remember.
And then, of course, because this is part of the Pinnacle Business Park, it is subject to the drainage board. So any development on any of these lots has to go through the drainage board. That's what Kelsey, the MS4 coordinator, has noted here. The highway department has noted that there are existing driveway entrances, but they would otherwise prefer that there just be one entrance, not two. This is the comprehensive plan. Happy to go through it if the planning commission members want me to. But it is otherwise designated as mixed use, which does allow for a large number of different things to be mixed into one area.
I just want people to start using that second roundabout.
I will say when I was out there, there was, I mean, it was during the day.
Yeah.
But there was some.
There's some traffic.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. I think I would like planning department to go to the redevelopment commission and to ask them both about whether they think it's appropriate to change this zoning to general business and all that, and give them the list of all it entails. I also think that they would not agree with the mixed use zoning that's on there from the comp plan right now. And I think that came about because this was the ABB site, it's a brownfield site. The RDC has a vision for this area and it is light industrial. My understanding is that there's a possibility not only to develop some small scale startup kinds of work, but also that somebody could ostensibly buy multiple lots and put something larger in. But this is part of the county where it was just brownfield, you know, obviously environmental issues. It's been redeveloped. Is this what we really? So that's why I said, I wonder if they looked on Liberty Drive to see if you all looked on Liberty Drive to see if there's a possibility, because that is more, because what that will do, it will bring retail customers in. It is putting convenience storage into another part of the county, which is just horrible. It's already bad enough where it is in that area. Because that's already stopping from, I just don't think this is a good fit, but I would really like to have the RDC members chime in for us and say, this is exactly what we intended. We intended this to become a retail general business park where people are going to come in and store their crap that they don't have room for anymore. And that's what we want for this land. I just don't know that that's was the vision, that matches the vision.
So, oh, go ahead, Jerry.
Wait, do you
I
have
was gonna say,
more presentation?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were done.
we're just set the site photos now.
Sorry.
But otherwise, this is also in the packet. And just as a reminder, it's two lots, not one. And then this is that eventually Sunrise Greeting extension will go here within potentially the next few years.
Okay, so looking from that, the proposed
It's over here.
developable lot is to the left. Okay. Thank you.
And then this is the petitioner's letter. It is also quite extensive. And then they did provide a conceptual site plan. So it's not anything set in stone, it's just potentially what they were looking for.
Is that the drainage easement that goes through there? Is that what that?
Yeah, I
what
think
that-
it is.
There was some sort of water feature they had there.
And as a reminder, this site is proposing to have both automotive rental and convenience
Yeah.
storage. So and it looks like they've probably got convenience storage up here, main office.
I would imagine one of those buildings is storage. But that's.
I believe they also are
Yeah.
proposing indoor
Yeah.
storage as well. And then this is just the plat, so 6 and 7 here. So otherwise, staff does recommend forwarding a positive recommendation to the planning commission based on the compatibility with the comprehensive plan. And then separate to the report, I did go ahead and just kind of do a quick running through our database to see if there were any enforcement cases involving U-Haul. I was able to locate 3 different locations where they were just local small businesses that also had probably some type of rental or leasing agreement with U-Haul, which was otherwise not permitted. And that's why they were enforcement cases at the time in 2015 and 2 in 2017. But otherwise, they were storing vehicles there. Staff had to go out. Each of these cases were eventually closed out, so presumably they were resolved at the time. But otherwise, I don't know, it might be more of a talking point, maybe from staff or maybe just amongst the PRC members, if U-Haul does have a facility, like an actual facility where they store both convenience storage and automotive vehicles, would that help alleviate future enforcement cases where they don't have to go around and ask local businesses if they would be willing to store their vehicles on there, which otherwise would not be permitted. So that's just a thought. And that's all, so.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, I agree with Julie. I'd like to hear from the redevelopment commission. I think we have an opportunity to put employment back where employment was. And to put something other than employment there doesn't sit well with me. That is my major concern about this. If you go down to Jonathan Drive, you have master rental there, you have a storage place. You know, farther down more toward the commercial general business area, I would not dispute this, but in this instance, I do not think it is consistent with what our plan calls for. So I abstain.
Questions. One, So in the new CDO, are we looking at putting use for this type of, adding a use for this type of facility? We've got, just like you said, Sean, with enforcement activities out there, they're obviously pinging and seeking
Mhm.
locations. Is that something we need to look at? That has nothing to do with it. But you also mentioned that there are other properties that they've been trying to vet. And that can be a pretty arduous process. So I'm sure that either my guess is they came to you with suggestions, needs, and then you probably helped them. Not that you're in the real estate business, but trying to help them find areas that might be suitable for them.
I do know, because I was sitting in, because I had a meeting with U-Haul and I was sitting in with Jackie, and I do know that they had two other locations that were, I think they derived access from Curry Pike, but they were also IG in the same zone, which means they would have to go through the same process. So I think that's why they would prefer to have a lot that's otherwise undeveloped, or they would like to utilize, like, I think we have like adaptive reuse of buildings. They would prefer to do that. It's just the zones that we have and the spaces that we have available aren't allowing for that type of use.
Okay, and I'm not putting Steph on the spot, but this does matter to me. Was this the property that everybody just kind of settled on, that this was the best thing that we could think of that they could go to? Because to me, you know, if they diligently gone through the process, tried to work with us to find an area, and this is the best thing we could come up with, one, why is this the best thing we could come up with? What is that saying about what we have out there? And two, where would they turn? I mean, where would they turn to try to find a location in Monroe County unless they went to Ellisville or went somewhere else? I mean, is that a fair question to ask? Because obviously they need to go somewhere. They've hit the resources that the county has in order to find a place for their business. So it's telling me that maybe you all can't locate in Monroe County.
Well, just a follow-up question to that, is it a standard practice if somebody wants to bring something to Bloomington, but they don't know where to put it, that they'll come meet with you all in the county and say, hey, we got this thing. Where do you suggest and what do you have available? Where they can locate it? Is that part of the process? Of the
Yeah,
planning department?
What we do is we have a use determination application form. And so we would have them define their business, what it is, ask about, I mean, it's a slew of questions that we go through. And then we look at what in our chapter 802 or chapter 833 zoning definitions, it would match up best with, and kind of make a determination based upon the use of what we think they are, have that in writing, and then match it up to the zones where it's permitted or conditional. Or this one is a hard one. I mean, we have had discussions in our office of like, what do you call U-Haul? What would you call this kind of facility? What's the use definition?
Almost like a car lot.
I think you're right about a rental, because that's what it is. There's typically a garage where they will install like your hitch or whatever on your vehicle. So there's a bit of a garage element, but not a deep one. And then there's convenience storage, which is a very different animal and something when you develop property like this and spend the amount of money that's been spent on it, making it usable again. I don't know that in terms of tax revenue, in terms of the ability to generate a lot of quality employment, that this is the answer. And again, there are other places in the community that may be better.
But that's my point. That's the question I'm having.
Right,
I mean,
There are two places in Ellisville where you can rent a U-Haul.
correct. But this isn't like, you wouldn't call, I guess this is my point, you wouldn't call the BEDC and go, hey, I'm U-Haul and I want to put in a convenience store. BEDC, they're like, whatever, good luck, call the planning department. It's not,
right. I agree
it's
with
not
that.
a magnet.
I agree with that. But again, my whole point, the reason why my question is Monroe County a place that we just really don't have a option for a U-Haul?
Oh, no, there are,
Okay, well, that's where I'm going back to my original question.
yeah, there are.
So staff encounters situations all the time where someone will come in and be like, I have this use, or I have this business opportunity that I want to engage in.
Yeah.
Where do you want me to put it?
Yeah.
Staff is not in the business of telling
Yeah.
people where to put it. That is their job to figure out based on our zoning.
But you might give
where
them
it fits best with them.
You might give.
We will give them options of.
Here's the best-
Here's the use determination form. You can fill it out without any property in particular. We encourage that you do select a property in particular. That way we can give you more information. But we evaluate their description and try and fit it into our use categories.
Say,
And
okay,
then once they have that, then we say, hey, go check out our zoning map and find property that fits that zoning
Just don't
district.
have availability of properties,
no,
nothing like that.
What is in the old Sunrise?
it's not our job. I get what you're asking though, but
I don't know.
I'm just trying to balance it.
yeah,
That's all.
no, I hear you. I hear you. Picking up what you put down.
I totally know the answer to the question.
There is there
Is there something in the old Sunrise building?
something there, but not using the whole building. I'm not.
I know
It's still there.
high tank veneers is on that same
It's
road
still there.
behind it.
There's-
Right, I know Jan's a friend of mine. But there was an office building and a separate warehouse facility on Sunrise Reading Court. It's been a long time since I've been back there.
I thought the warehouse was used for something else, but I'm not sure if it's.
And I know that there's a perpetual for sale sign
Yeah.
on Vernal there.
Right,
So, you know, in that instance, that property or going on down to the area where Rev Sports and Grimes Pools and all that space back in there, especially once the connector, you know, through Sunrise Reading Court or whatever happens, then I see that's appropriate in those areas. It's not appropriate here in my.
I think the employment generator is huge. I do not dispute that at all. Again, my questions came from, if not here, where? And
that's not our job, but I can tell you that there are plenty of places elsewhere that this could be done.
Are there any
The
places? in the
property
north
may
on
be more
PUD
expensive,
On
it may
the
be
north side
smaller, it may be.
of
both.
46.
It may not-
That is only appropriate.
They may not wanna put it.
Don't know if that use is
They may
defined
wanna
exactly in
put
their
it.
ordinance.
See, that's what I'm just wondering.
But that's not what we do in the county, like, we don't help, we don't direct people, like, you should go here and.
well, I understand that.
But there,
I
that
feel like
new
there's sometimes
basis.
a different vision for that whole area.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do. Well, I mean,
that's why the.
it's mixed use for that whole area on that opposite side. I feel like Stonecroft is or not, what is it, Stone? The rehab facility and then you know, I feel like that's starting to become a medical park and I'm good with that. But what, you know what I'm talking about on Curry?
Yeah, but no, I mean, there are some medical uses at the front of, on Third Street, West Third. But you also have
In
the,
North Park where the
oh, North
ambulance-
Park,
right.
oh, okay, I thought you.
I moved, I
Okay,
moved on
sorry.
down toward North Park
Okay.
and the north side of
Well,
North Park
That was supposed
has
to be the hospital,
nothing,
right,
you know,
well, not yet,
right? But and the hospital still owns all that property though. Right, that 80 acres, that was the original plan.
It's a whole other serious discussion.
No,
yeah,
I know, I'm just saying though, I wondered if there's not something in that area more to the northwest that's appropriate for U-Haul.
So I have a question. What do we tell the petitioner? Since essentially what it sounds like we're saying is that what you're trying to do does not fit into this area. What do we tell the petitioner? Do we reject the petition because it doesn't fit?
Well, yeah, that's
Or do we reject it because you really need to look elsewhere because it doesn't take in line with what we have planned for that area? What do we tell the petitioner? That's a devil's advocate question.
I'd say it's not consistent with the employment that we see in that area based on the comp plan and the fact that it's in a TIF.
Again, devil's advocate, what is your source for that statement?
What I just said, the TIF and the fact that that's a redevelopment area, and you don't redevelop an employment area and turn it into a large use non-employment.
Is that written down somewhere in one of your documents?
No, but that's why I suggested taking to the RDC as well, this map, because this to me does not fit
It's the whole employment component. You're gonna have one clerk.
mixed
with
use.
Two guys out there vacuuming the cars and, you know, young lady passing out the keys. And I mean, and what Jerry's saying is exactly right in my opinion, but I keep going back to. That's it. I mean, we can go this planning commission. I'm not warm and fuzzy about it. It's a new subdivision. We just approved it with the RDC's goals of an employment-based hub here. And we're not providing that, but I'm also trying to understand with the work that staff has done. Understanding the findings of fact, why there's a recommendation of approval. I mean, that's what I'm trying to fit together. And I thought it was because there was a lot of work done to try to help them find the best property within their criteria. And just like Julie said, could be money, could be location, and narrows down pretty quick when you have the wants and the needs, right? But that's kind of what I'm trying to get with it, is to understand why that employment versus the recommendation, it seems like there's a disconnect.
We have a portion in the staff report that touches on the CDO at all.
Well, if you look at where this is in this comp plan, it touches mixed use, and the mixed use there touches employment. A comp plan is a thumbnail sketch. It's not a zoning map. And when I see a small mixed use this close to employment, and then I see the bigger picture, and this goes to answer your question, Scott, is that now in light of the bigger picture and what we're seeing develop there, that little spot of red should be purple. That's my justification for it. And I don't think I need any more than that.
Other comments, questions? I want to make a motion, or do we just want to take our comments forward?
Move with comment.
Okay.
At this stage, because
And I just want to say just real quickly too, because I was on the scene when all this was going on. I don't think any of us had any idea of how the ABB property was going to be extended out the way it is. I mean, well, the extension of Profile Parkway or whatever it's called through there that goes all the way back through to Coles and, all that stuff. That was a fortuitous event. That was not on the plan. That road came about as a result of extra money on the table. And that totally changed the complexion of this. The money that's going to extend Sunrise Greeting Port across the railroad. When we first looked at this, we were told the railroad would never work with us to get an extension from the industrial park into the Profile Park area and all that stuff. It was not going to happen. We were told it never happened. So the complexion of this has totally changed. Mixed use is not an appropriate designation for anywhere really that is part of the former ABB property. Anything that faces Jonathan Drive as a lot, I think might easily be declared mixed use appropriate, but anything that doesn't face Jonathan Drive in that area, I don't see it as being anything but employment. And there's my justification.
Are we done?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Thank you, everybody.
Bernie, is this it for you? Good?
What? Oh, meetings?
Yeah.
Or, I don't